Well, I think, people often ask the question of like, well, how do I know when to reach out? I think if you've thought about that, if that question's popped into your head, then you should be reaching out and asking for help. Yeah, it was a pretty unbelievable kind of feeling. I think, I started the campaign, wanting to speak to the Prime Minister about some of the issues that have been raised by many of the experts, the kind of charities, the leads, I guess, in mental health. I spent a lot of time speaking with those parties and finding out more information about what we need to do. And I wanted just to kind of get across some of those points. I never dreamed that actually I would end up in this role, as youth mental health ambassador. And, really what this role entails is to try and, bring the focus of, government and what they're doing and the decisions they're making to, think about mental health and all the decisions they're making. There's so many experts around the table. I'm not there to advise government on what the best practice of a certain treatment or whatever it is. I'm there as an advocate really for mental health, to give and use my platform to give young people a voice. And that's what I hope to do. And that's what we're working hard to do at the moment. It's trying to amplify, the message and try and get things done. So I think my interest, I guess, or my focus around mental health started at university. So in my fourth year, I studied actually down in Exeter and Plymouth. That was the university I was in, and we were on placement. Some of us went on placement down in Truro. Cornwall's a beautiful part of the world, and beautiful beaches and all that. But actually, I ended up quite isolated, and I really, I really became quite lost. I think I got myself into a rut. Wasn't feeling very good. Probably had very mild depression at the time. I lost interest in my, sport and exercise. I wasn't going out walking. My eating was terrible. My sleep was even worse. And I was kind of losing myself a little bit. And I felt too ashamed actually to speak to the med school. So I thought, well, they won't let me, graduate. Excuse me. I thought the med school wouldn't let me graduate actually if I spoke to them. So I eventually called my family, my mum actually, and said to her, look, this is how I feel. And she said, well, you're very wise actually for someone who's not medical at all. But she said, well, you're not doing the things that actually would keep you feeling good. So let's talk about how you feel each day. Let's keep an eye on things, but let's also build these routines up. So I started exercising again. I made sure I had a walk every single day to get some natural light. I planned to see my friends and made actual good plans to do things with them. I created a sleep routine, the time of getting up in the morning, time to go to bed, and I planned my meals. It's all very simple stuff really, but it made a huge difference. And within weeks, I felt so much better and so much more myself again. And when you fast forward to working in A&E, and I work in Lewisham, I just think so many of my patients don't have those tools. They don't have that knowledge that they've been given really. They don't have that, awareness of the things they can actually do to help themselves. And that's, I think, where my real focus started. And since the show, obviously the platform I've had is really big, and I've been trying to use that, I guess, to raise awareness, to support the charities in that health space, and of course promote positive messages around self-care. I think it's because that's how we're going to change and break down the stigma. I think people being uncomfortable around mental health, not sure what it is, like what are emotions, what are feelings, how do we navigate this space? I think that awkwardness, I think we particularly see in perhaps the older generations. Maybe that's not always fair, but sometimes we do see that in older generations. I think to combat that is conversation, talking, education, as with most things, and it's getting in there young. I think we made so much progress with sexual health in this country. Like, we're so much less taboo around sex and sexual education now than we were even 10 years ago. And I think we can do a similar thing with mental health. I think if we get in there young, and get young children talking about their thoughts, their feelings, emotional literacy, so understanding the words and language that's around mental health and well-being. And when you build that up into a good understanding of how to look after themselves and what to do when things go wrong, I think that makes people so much more comfortable, because then it's just something that's spoken about. And situations, particularly in men, that we see where men won't share in their feelings and when they're struggling. The way to really combat that is make an environment that and a culture of it's okay, genuinely, that it's okay not to be, and it's okay to talk about it. Well, I think, people often ask the question of like, well, how do I know when to reach out? I think if you thought about that, if that question's popped into your head, then you should be reaching out and asking for help. And of course, there is a very long conversation to be had about resourcing and funding and services, because of course, a lot of people feel very frustrated that sometimes when they're reaching out, they're having very long waiting times. What I would say is that actually there are a lot of different sources of support. Yes, of course, going to the GP and referrals might be needed to different therapies, but there are fantastic organisations and charities out there that look to support people from young mind to young minds. If you go onto the fantastic website Hub of Hope, people can look at, and if you put your postcode in, it will tell you all the support services from charities to NHS and otherwise available in the area to support you. And there are a lot of there's a lot of support out there that people don't realise and aren't aware of. But it's very important, if you are struggling to reach out, because ultimately we can only start breaking down and fixing a problem when we actually, acknowledge it and do something about it. And that's that first step that's sometimes the hardest, but that is ultimately will bring change. And I always say, try and tell someone in your friendship group, someone in your family, ideally someone at work, and also a professional as well. So then you've got different networks of people, different parts of your life who can support you, because ultimately you don't need to go through problems and difficult times alone. We're here as a community. Human beings are, we live as social creatures, as units, if you like. And so don't expect to go things alone, because you don't have to.